Hello, BookTube. Todd the Librarian here, and this is my November wrap-up. I really went for it. Nonfiction November, I read 4 books. Kicking ass, as always. Just remember, it's not the quantity, but the quality. So, I was real happy with this TBR. The first book I read was Running on Red Dog Road. And this was about life growing up in a coal camp, and a lot of this stuff hit home with me because growing up in this part of Kentucky, in the 60s and 70s, a lot of this stuff rang true. You haven't lived until you have to use an outhouse in the middle of January. So, also this book, I almost cried at the end. I was right there. I mean, it's really touching. And then another book that I read was What My Heart Wants to Tell, Berta Mae Sloan. I met this lady. She was just an amazing person. A local celebrity in this part of the world. And if you want to know what life was in this region of Kentucky, from like the 30s on up to, I'm not sure about the timeline on this, but it really reminded me of the stories that I was told and stuff like that. And some of it actually were reflections on my childhood. Not quite to the extent as far as Verna Mae talked about, but still a lot of it reminded me of when I was growing up around here. So that's What My Heart Wants to Tell by Verna Mae Sloan. And by the way, I'm going to give all of these books 4 out of 5 stars because they were just amazing. The other book was Night Comes to the Cumberlands. I've really, you can tell that I've marked stuff in this book, and this was about when the big companies came in, took advantage of all the poor people in this area, screwed them out of their land, put people to work for pretty much nothing. You worked in the coal mines, and you were paid in scrip. You weren't paid in actual money, so your wages went right back to the company, so they weren't losing anything. And then if you got killed, tough whatever. They'd give your family so long to move their stuff out, and they would just replace you. That's the way it was. So, Night Comes to the Cumberlands by Harry M. Cottle, and this was a book that I used a lot to research my novel, Gray Sun and the Colored Rain, which is about life in a segregated coal camp. The other book I read was The Shadow of Slavery by Pete Daniel, and this was about how after the Civil War and all the laws that were enacted to try to prevent slavery and people being used and stuff, what they did in the South was they used laws, local government, local law officials to kind of keep all this stuff going. And eventually, thanks to that book right there, that was one of the mechanisms that made people aware of what was going on as far as peonage and stuff, and the fact that they would keep somebody pretty much as an indentured servant. Clearly we've come a long way, but we still have a ways to go. My experience with people as far as racism goes is that everybody's, pretty much the same. Obviously I'm supposed to be a Caucasian, but trust me, I'm Indian, German, Dutch, blah 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 blah. I just think if you're poor, chances are you're going to be crapped on regardless of your color. But now that's just my opinion. Everybody has their own experiences, and whatnot. So like I said, we've come a long way, and we have a ways to go yet. But I mean, things like I said, I was born in the early '60s, and I've seen a lot of the changes. So I mean, people that think that it's bad now, you really have no idea. I mean, I've been around half a century, and I've seen some things, and there are a lot more positives than there are negatives. So anyway, like I said, all these books, I'm going to give them a 4 out of 5. This was a great TBR, and I don't, well, I started to say I don't read a lot of nonfiction, but I read whatever piques my interest. So I'm going to let you fine folks go, and stay tuned. We'll see what I'm into next. Bye bye.